Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the Vikings. Fearless warriors from the frozen north. Long beards flowing in the wind. Axes raised high. And on their heads, massive helmets crowned with horns. This image feels ancient. It feels real. It feels undeniable. But here is the truth that history whispers. That Viking never existed. Not once. Not ever. The horned Viking helmet is one of the greatest myths ever created. And today, we uncover how the world was fooled. For centuries, Vikings have been remembered as brutal barbarians, roaring across Europe with fire and steel. Paintings, films, comics, and video games all repeat the same image. But history tells a very different story. When archaeologists began uncovering Viking burial sites, they expected to find fearsome helmets with horns or wings. What they actually found was silence. No horns, no spikes, no decorations, only simple, practical iron helmets, built not for drama, but for survival. The most famous Viking helmet ever discovered is called the Gjermundbu helmet, found in Norway. It is heavy, rounded, plain. It has a nose guard. It has no horns. And this discovery was not an exception. Every single piece of Viking-era evidence tells the same story. Real Viking warriors wore helmets that protected their skulls, not their reputation. Because in real combat, horns would be a disaster. They would make the helmet heavier. They would allow enemies to grab, pull, or strike more easily. They would turn a warrior into a target. Vikings were fierce, but they were intelligent. They did not wear death traps into battle. So if Vikings never wore horned helmets, who did? The answer takes us far deeper into the past. More than 1,000 years before the Vikings, during the Bronze Age, certain ceremonial helmets with horns did exist in Europe. But these were not worn by warriors. They were worn by priests, by ritual leaders, by symbolic figures during religious ceremonies. These helmets were never meant for war. They were meant for worship, and most importantly, they vanished long before the Viking Age ever began. So how did these ancient ritual symbols become permanently attached to Viking warriors? The real birthplace of the horned Viking helmet is not a battlefield. It is a theater. In the 19th century, Europe became obsessed with romanticizing the past. Vikings were reimagined as wild, untamed forces of nature, larger than life. In 1876, a powerful opera titled Der Ring des Nibelungen premiered in Germany. The story was inspired by Norse legends. The costume designers faced a challenge. They needed the audience to instantly recognize who the savage warriors were, without explanation. So they invented something unforgettable: horned helmets. Under stage lights, the horns looked intimidating. They looked mythical. They looked dramatic. And the audience loved it. From that moment, the image spread like wildfire. Opera posters carried it. Painters copied it. Books repeated it. By the time cinema arrived, the myth was already unstoppable. Early films embraced exaggerated imagery. Horned helmets became visual shorthand for Viking. Then came cartoons, then comics, then fantasy films and video games. Generation after generation inherited the same false image, until fiction completely replaced fact. Today, when people learn that Vikings never wore horned helmets, disbelief is the most common reaction, because the myth feels older than history itself. But the truth is simple. The horned helmet is not a relic of the Viking Age. It is a product of 19th century imagination. Real Vikings were far more complex than the myth allows. They were explorers who crossed oceans, traders who built vast networks, lawmakers who created assemblies, craftsmen, poets, and settlers. Their power did not come from appearance. It came from discipline, strategy, and fear earned through action. They did not need horns to inspire terror. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of this story. Sometimes the most famous images of history are the least accurate. Sometimes truth is quieter than myth, but far more fascinating. So the next time you see a Viking wearing a horned helmet, remember this story. You are not looking at history. You are looking at a costume, one that fooled the world. Viewers, if you like this video, please like, subscribe my channel Stories and More, and share to others. Thank you for watching.